any test throat run that.
Cool. Okay, so let's start.
Okay, nice. I like
Okay.
punctuality.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amulya Gupta, and I'm a second-year MBBS student at AIIMS New Delhi.
I don't
know that, but I do have.
I'll be acting as a moderator in this first session of research in MBBS. A lot of students are don't take research in MBBS because they have preconceived barriers in their minds. They think that maybe it's too tough, maybe their college doesn't have enough resources, and much more. So the main aim of this workshop is to demolish those barriers and show you the path to your first research project. So we start with myth busting to remove such preconceived notions that hamper research. So we have with us Dr. Varat Kuntambekar. He's an intern at AIIMS New Delhi and also the founder of Scientific Society. He has done electives. He has done electives in Johns Hopkins and also worked with IIT Kharagpur. And he was also selected for the Khurana Scholarship, but unfortunately, the pandemic didn't allow him to go. So, Varat,
so let's
the
start.
podium is yours. Sure.
Okay, so with this cool transition, we start with our first presentation, which is myth busting by me and Amulya. So Amulya will also chip in. If you have any questions that you want to ask, please go ahead and keep sending your questions because that's more important than our pre-decided question. So we'll start with the first one. My college is the problem. My college doesn't have enough resources, enough faculty or culture.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially in maybe state colleges, also feel that the lab equipment is not enough, and even if the professors are present, they won't give them a project or they're too preoccupied with themselves.
Yeah, so that's the myth that we want to bust, that the college is the problem. So this statement is true in some aspects, which is presence of lab facility for basic sciences. Like if your lab does not have a Western blotting machine, or if your lab does not have a wet lab already set up for you to go in and work, then it will be very difficult for you to do that. But thankfully, research is not limited to the first six subjects of first and second prop. It has a lot of other subjects, and so that's when we come to our second point, which is software for data analysis. So clinical research, which most of us want to do as who want to become clinicians, is more is centered around asking a good clinical question. It's not centered around having facilities. So there are few softwares which most of the technical stuff online is freely available. So you just have to learn those technical skills, and then if you have a question, you can answer them with the help of these tools.
So Varat, exactly how much resources you want in clinical research? Like, suppose, like, what do you do in clinical research as such?
So I think that's another slide. We'll get there later. So
okay, sure. Okay.
I don't have enough knowledge to do research. This is where we will cover what all to do if you want to get into clinics.
All right.
But right now, let's just focus on the college doesn't have resources. So that's what I wanted to say. That statement is true, but only in case of basic sciences, but not in case of clinical sciences. Clinical sciences, if you have a good enough question, you can approach a faculty and you can analyze data yourself. You are smart enough to do that on your own. Don't underestimate yourself. Wait, sorry. The next part is that you're the only person in your college who wants to do research. So that is something that is a notion that you develop if you don't meet enough people. It's like you'll always find someone else to do interesting research with you. So my advice would be to ask around and see if people are interested. And you are responsible for the culture in your college. Yeah, sorry, it just happened. Happens Wednesday. Then moving on to the next point, which is your threshold is always one, which means that you only need one faculty, one clinical research project to start. Once you get rolling, you'll get a good enough idea that how to proceed. And it's yeah. Then finally is if your college doesn't have enough resources, that's fine, and you still want to do basic science, you still want to do wet lab research, such as you still want to do immunofluorescence, you still want to do Western, qPCR, PCR, then you should look for places that do have these opportunities, that do have these facilities. This this portion will be covered by Poliseti at 7. I think that's when his session starts.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any particular questions about this particular topic? That college facility is the like college is the source of the problem. So our opinion is that college usually isn't. It's mostly uh, your own ability. We like to keep the blames to ourselves rather than spread it around.
One question from YouTube is that teachers don't take us seriously.
Oh, yeah, that okay. That is actually
So,
true. That's actually
how will you approach?
No. So
But
people.
what I think is that if you ask one or two professors and they refuse to take you seriously, I don't think that all professors would refuse to take you seriously, because research is, I think, compulsory in all colleges, because the residents have to submit a research project. So at least some amount of research is happening at all places, right? So that's what I feel that.
So what I want to add is, so what was the question? Teachers don't take us seriously. Is that if you do some homework, everyone will take you seriously. So if you have a mind, when you approach faculty that I read about this. This is what I want to work on. Can you help me? Mostly faculty says that I can't help you on this. If you want to work, you can work on my project. This sometimes happens. This usually happens. But teachers take you more seriously if you are well prepared. If you have read one or two papers of the faculty, that's enough. If the faculty writes and publishes papers, you can just search their name on PubMed, read a few of their papers, read what they have done, and then talk to them. Then they'll respect you. Okay, this guy reads a little. This guy knows what he's talking about, or this girl knows what she's talking about. So that's my approach to when if I want myself to be taken seriously, and if you're really passionate about it.
Right.
This is also true for every college. Like if I'm in AIIMS and I want to apply to Hopkins, so what I do is I look at the profile of each and every professor. Then I have to read each and every one of their, not each and every one of their papers, usually their latest paper. The thing about US is you have to also look at their Twitter account, what they are doing, and and then you apply to them. So that is a very high level of hard work if you want to apply to a foreign university. But if you want to go and talk to a professor right next to you, you just have to do basic work. Just read what he has done or she has done. Fine. I think, are there any more questions? How to start research where you don't have facilities? Yeah, so that's what I said, that if you want to do basic researches, look for places outside. But if you want to do clinical research, you can start. You just have to read papers by a faculty that you respect, and then just approach that this is what I want to do. And usually,
basic sciences research include anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and the second year subjects also.
Micro and forensic, I guess. I don't know. We don't know about forensic. Teachers are more of MGMT friendly. What's MGMT?
Management friendly. I don't know.
I don't know what MGMT is.
Okay, how do we know a research idea is new or already someone has done it?
That's very easy. There's a great search engine developed by Larry Page and Sergey Brin called Google. I'm sorry to sound speaking. So yeah, you just Google whatever you want to search. It usually comes up. So basically, Google is your favorite friend. Is your best friend. Sorry, not favorite. Is your best friend. You have to use the services. If you
Top with relative.
are available, and if things are not available, then you can go ahead because mostly research is highly subjective. So based on the context that you're in, you can your work is unique enough. That's what I believe. But if your question is, regarding your particular institution, then you can structure your study design in such a way that you can say that you're unique enough to be able to deserve further work into this. Like, like if I want to give an example, if I want to do research in my college, I can say that this is a tertiary care hospital in North India. So there are so many data points there that you can alter and modify. Tertiary care in West, tertiary care Central, primary care North, primary care West. Like you can play around with it in students, in college, in school. There are so many variables that you can play with to make yourself unique enough. So don't worry about being unique. And then
Okay,
the,
one more question which I think is relevant to this field is we are not at the college right now. So how can we take up a research project at this
sorry,
particular point of time in the pandemic?
so we are not in college right now. How can we take a research topic? Oh, that's actually a good
Okay,
question.
so uh, can I answer it?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Conversation.
I
Okay,
think you
okay.
have.
So even I was at my home and I wanted to do a research project. So what I did was I developed a questionnaire-based study in which I developed a Google form, and my study was based on the willingness of medical students to volunteer during COVID pandemic. So I made a simple Google form, and I put a lot of questions there, testing the willingness of people to do work in what field they have to do work, they want to do work, etc. And then I distributed that questionnaire to WhatsApp, Gmail, whatever, to my friends. And I got a reasonable sample size. And right now I have then I analyzed the data, and before that, I came in contact with my professor. I just wrote a mail that I want to do a research project. He gave me his phone number and I called him, and we discussed about the project. So that's how you can come in contact with the professor. You can always find the contact number of your professor or maybe the email on your college website. And that's how I started that project. Right now, I've put it in, submitted to IJMR. Let's see what happens. So I think that's how you can do project right now when you're sitting at home.
Yeah. So there
So
are
you can continue.
there are three or four very good concepts that Amulya said. First is being the ability to make cold emails. Just don't be afraid of making cold emails to anyone in this world. I have made I have written emails to Nobel laureates just because I wanted to, and didn't even hope for a reply because I just thought it was a good way to spend my Sunday. So don't be afraid of doing cold emails. So I've taken it. So I've given a little extreme example, but what Amulya said is very practical. That if you have a question in mind, then you can email a faculty in your college. So emailing the faculty is the best way to start uh, yeah, research during pandemic. And I think there was another very good question that I wanted to take out. Narrow down on a particular mentor. Ki, how do we approach a faculty outside our college? I think Polycity will cover this a little, but uh, I'll just I'll give a TLDR version. I'll give a shorter version, which is being like have the ability to do cold to make cold emails, write them, write emails as much as possible. This, acha, nahi, nahi, nahi. So what I wanted to say is, if you want to apply to a professor from another college, then there is a little more hard work required than if you want to apply in your own. Which is then you have to research that faculty, you have to research what he or she is doing, and then write a structured email so that the person in front should be gets a little impressed. You know, that's the plan of that would be my plan to approach an extramural faculty. So connection between grades will come up in one of the next slides. So
I think we
this
can move to the next myth.
I think we can move to the next myth. Come on. Yes. Second myth is that I need ICMR STS to do research. I don't know how significant of a myth this is, but people have told me that it is pretty significant. So we'll talk about it a little. So ICMR is just a body that, you know, that does research on its own and it wants to promote research. So, and STS is a way that they are promoting research among undergraduate medical students. But it is definitely not a necessity. It is a good way to to get introduced into research. It is kind of like alcohol. It is a gateway drug into research. So, so what I've written on slide is are the different parts of a research project is having an idea, looking for an answer, then measuring your answer, and then telling other people that see this this these were my results or this was my answer. So why I really like ICMR STS is because it has everything I like in an internship. It has a start, it has a middle, and it has an end. It is highly predictable. All the different stages are clearly defined, and it also gives you a guideline or a structure how to write a proper scientific paper.
Okay, Bharat. So someone has asked, what is STS actually?
Oh, no, sorry. STS is short-term students. Okay, wait, I'll show you now. So this is STS, Indian Council of Medical Research Short-Term Studentship. Must complete this. So do you want me to open home? Open home.
It's home, I guess.
So
Okay.
what is this? Yeah. Application invited interested MBBS BDS students short-term in 1979 promote interest aptitude research. 1500 will be awarded. So and this time they're giving 10,000 rupees. They gave me only 5,000 when I was applying.
Bharat, I would like you to introduce the concept of STS. Some people don't actually know the concept. So basic concept in maybe 2 minutes.
Concept of STS is it's just okay. It's a scholarship program to promote students who can structure, who can write, and who can devise a study design on their own, who can devise an independent research on their own. This is their idea, but they don't want you to just do whatever comes into your mind. So they have a structure prepared that you should approach a faculty and they will help you in your journey. This is what the concept of ICMR STS is. And if ICMR likes your proposal, a proposal is a basic idea of what you want to do. So if ICMR likes it, then they'll promote you to a report, which is now they want you to do an in-depth analysis of your question. They want you to look for answers. And if ICMR likes your results, if ICMR likes your paper, then they'll give you 10,000, sorry, 20,000 rupees that and say, good job. You can write this in your CV now. So this is the concept behind ICMR STA. That's it. And there's a question, is it worth applying? Yes. Like, I don't think you can apply it after you've selected, but if you've not been selected, you can keep applying it again and again. So the why?
Yeah, but it's not compulsory to do research as such, right?
So the next topic we move on to is that it is not compulsory. That what should I say? That ICMR is not compulsory. It's fine, but it's like it's just helping you. It's not going to give you an authority that okay, this person can do research or this person can't do research just because they have an ICMR STS degree. It's just that okay, ICMR thinks that this person can do research. It's not about your ability. It's about their ability to judge you, which is highly subjective. So don't get disheartened if you don't get selected or if you don't want to apply to ICS STS in the first place. It's just basically external validation for your own work. If you don't want that too much, then you can just do it yourself. Uh, so there's a question. What was the question? Something other than ICMR that Dr. Polisetti will be covering in his lecture. Is my audio clear?
Yep, your audio is clear. Just put it on full screen mode, the presentation.
Huh?
Huh?
Yeah, that's fine. But like it's showing me or you may be experiencing network. Okay, never mind.
Uh,
On what basis? That's a good question. On what basis our proposal accepted or rejected? It's you can't, you don't know. Nobody knows. Even the ICMR people don't know. They have random reviewers, mostly from AIIMS, who go there and judge, blindly what and what an MBBS student can do. So there actually have been one of my seniors whose application got rejected because they said that this work is too complicated for an undergraduate to do. Even though your work is nice, but we won't accept you because your work is too good. This so it's highly subjective. There are no there's no rule behind acceptance or rejection from ICM. But mostly
right.
they look for people who can structure a. But that's an anomaly. The example I gave earlier, it's not norm. But mostly they're looking for people who can structure their study design in a particular way. That's what they're looking
Right.
for.
So I
So
think
all,
we can move to the next slide, right?
yeah, I think we can move to the next slide, which basically tells you about ICMR in one small slide. It gives you 20,000 rupees for doing a work which is not directly proportional to its impact on society or its or anything. It's just there, how much the ICMR people like your project. It has got nothing to do with your ability to do research. It has nothing to do with the question's applicability to do good in society. So I'm not saying that people who do get ICMR are bad. I'm just saying that who don't get are not bad. Very simple. And moving on to the next slide, which is that how do you manage time? MBBS curriculum is too hectic. We have a lot of exams. We have 12, 19 subjects to prepare. And how do I find time for this?
Yep,
There
yep.
are
And a lot of people feel that first prof to कर लेते हैं. Let's pass first prof, right?
yeah,
He
yeah.
will
The sad truth is
let's.
that the sad truth to waiting until first prof is, which I did by the way, I made that mistake. But the sad truth too is it is first prof will not teach you how to do research at all. First prof will focus the subjects in first profs are focused more towards uh, you know learning subjects which don't teach research methodology, which don't teach you tools, because these tools are usually very expensive and it's not practical for everybody in first year to get research. That's why the first year curriculum is made in such a way that students are not you will not learn about research. So if you want to wait until you finish your first proc so that you will know enough, that's not true. What So that's so I think that should answer it. I think Amulya has another point to make regarding this. What did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that like first, like it's not like that first prof is like some people also feel that professor will take you more seriously when you have covered up the when you have scored some marks and you have at least passed a benchmark examination. It's not a benchmark examination as such. So it's not like professors would say like that you have not read physiology till now, so how can you actually do research in physiology, right?
Yeah, I think that we will cover in our next, which is I don't have enough knowledge. I don't know enough
uh,
to do
yep,
any
yep,
research.
yep. So I think we can move to like in the mid three we can move
So
to the second part.
that your knowledge or your what should I say skills that you have are not sufficient enough. So just wait. Don't take yourself too harshly. Don't criticize yourself. So the next point which I want to make about the first line is I should only start research the first. So first prof is a very good time to research faculty in your college to get to know who is a good professor, who is a bad professor, who judges me based on my marks, and who just accepts me for who I am and my interests. So that's why. So that's what first prof is for. You just have to observe keenly and look for faculty who you think whom you can respect, and who will respect you in return.
Yeah, and one of my friends, I asked him to approach a professor and take up a project, and he said that I don't score really well in my internals. My professor would scold me perhaps if I approach him, so I shouldn't approach my professor. And I think like this maybe like people are hesitant to approach professors. I think it has to be like you have to like. What are your views about it?
Sorry, what was the question? I was reading the chat. Sorry.
Okay. One of my friends, he was like, the professor would judge me for my marks. I
Oh,
don't score really well in internals,
so yes,
and
we had a discussion about this yesterday, and we decided that such faculty should be blacklisted. Shouldn't be saying this out loud. No, just don't talk to them.
yes,
Come on.
yes, yeah, blacklist them. Don't get disheartened. Move to the next faculty. Yeah.
Yeah, you are more important than the faculty or what the faculty thinks about you. So just don't, you know, don't be too disheartened if a faculty doesn't like you. It's least of your problems. I think there were two questions which we missed. Can we do research during internship? Is it? Can we cover this now? I think we can. Acha, हाँ, it will
Yep.
come in.
Yep. Yep.
So my professor would judge me based on my marks and internals. So a good solution is to blacklist these professors. Tell your juniors about it. Tell your junior that this person only looks for marks. Not a good person to do research with. And don't like you can't quote me on this. Please don't quote me on
So
this. It's not very safe to say. Okay, never mind. Moving on. The next point is regular classes and exams take up too much of my time. So which is actually a very genuine concern, that you don't get enough time to be able to think of a question, do data analysis, collect data, and then publish it. So the solution to that is, I think, mostly hard work. You like there are some things which are necessary for you to do research, which is collecting data and then writing about it. So,
and also like research is not time bound as such, right? Like exams are time bound, that you have exams in 1 month and you have to give it.
yes, there is no dead end for research, but I like to have dead ends on my projects. So I usually don't have dead ends for submission. I usually have dead ends for data collection. So if you have a dead end for data collection, then you can actually manage your classes and schedule accordingly. So that if you skip a few of your lectures to attend to collect data, like usually if you say you're doing in pediatric respiratory pediatrics, then usually they will have their clinics on 2 days, such as Tuesday and Thursday. So you can skip accordingly. Skip Tuesday afternoon and Thursday afternoon to attend those clinics particularly. Calculate how much data you will be able to collect, how much data you'll need, plan accordingly, and skip lectures accordingly. That's usually my plan. That's how I did. Even though I usually didn't do a lot of clinical research, but I'm doing it right now, and this is how I go on about it. Like if I have to go for my portions in the morning, I do that. Then in the afternoon, I go and collect some data or go and write down data. So yeah, that's how you uh, find out time out of your regular classes. So I think I said I didn't give you a proper context behind my previous statement. So what I want to say is, if you want to do a research, there are few steps to it. First is having an idea. Second is designing your study. Third is collecting data. And fourth is publishing results. So the first two parts are actually the most interesting part, which is having a question and then designing a study. So that I usually do it in after 6 or after 7. I call a few of my friends. I have them sit down and I brainstorm with them. So then you can have a general idea about what question you want to ask and how do you want to ask the question. The only problem which comes about managing time is during data collection, because writing you can do on your own time, writing you can do in your free time. The only problem is data collection, which usually you can only do between 9 to 5. So to be able to manage data collection, you have to plan it out a little. How much time will it कितना टाइम लगेगा, कहाँ जाना रहेगा और क्या क्या छोड़ सकते हैं, क्या क्या नहीं छोड़ सकते. So how much time will it take,
Right.
how to collect, and what all things will I have to skip. So you calculate accordingly and you should be fine. My professors would, we did this and need to start dams in sixth semester. So for this, I usually have a, you know, straight up answer is that dams and research sometimes go, have a conflict of interest with each other. If you, dams in usually prepares you to, uh, to, to pass an exam, and research prepares you to be able to ask good questions, you know, and solve them scientifically. Solving questions is a next step, which is which people help you with. People can help you to find answers, but people will not help you to find questions. So if you are interested in doing research, if you're interested in doing how to ask good questions, so dance is not a place which will teach you this. But if you still want to, then your workload will increase. If you want to invest how much, 8 and 9 hours, sorry, 8 and 12 hours, which is like your entire weekend. If you want to invest to prepare for a exam, then I think you should focus more on that.
Right. So we have one question. Is it true that having more than one guides from different colleges adds value to your research? Like,
Value to research only depends on where it gets published. No, no. Value of research, it doesn't matter who is your guide, who does it. You do it alone, sitting on your couch, which I don't prescribe. But value to research is only depends on where you get published. So why am I saying that? Is because most of these journals have very rigid guidelines that you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do all of these things. And if you usually do all of these things, your paper has a very good quality. Your paper is of a very good quality.
right.
So having profs from different college will not add to the value of the research. It might add to the uh, to the variety of questions that you can ask, and to the variety of tools that you can use to answer that question.
Yeah, and it
So
can help in data collection as well.
are
Like
you
you can
getting
have
the word?
multi-centric approach.
Sometimes I'm talking too much in lingo. So if you have any problems, understanding something I've said or a word, you can please, interrupt me, because all this is something we have not done before. Mythbusters, because I personally don't know any myths of myself. So
So
I don't know how to
okay,
bust. I just can, give you personal examples
yeah,
and collective examples from people in my.
right.
And any
So
is there any?
I think there is, I think, again, that's a repetition. I think ICMR is the only platform for UGs to do research. It's not a
No,
platform as such. It's just a
research.
pocket money giving organization.
Yeah, that's
uh,
actually very. They judge
yeah.
you based on your research, and my opinion is no one can judge you. You do, like, only your work will define who you are, not what someone else says. Keep doing your work. Don't, place too much importance onto big names or institutions such as ICM. If you type, okay, now I will not trash ICMR anymore. They are good people.
Okay, right, right. We can move to the next method, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Let's move on to the fourth one. For this, we thought we would do a live demonstration. I don't have enough knowledge to do research. So for that, our answer is all you need is a good faculty and the ability to search papers on PubMed.
Your voice broke a little. I think you have to repeat the
Hello?
last two sentences.
Sorry.
Uh,
So all you need to know to be able to do good research is the name of a good faculty and how to search paper on PubMed. Okay. So yes, so the page turns. So these are the four basic steps to start any research paper from your couch to the room of the faculty. So all so
in
this is
basic
this is all
sciences.
the hard work that you need to know to get to the room of the faculty and take steps further. First is to search that faculty, and if you want, I can give you a live demonstration.
Yep,
See, you
yep,
don't
that
need to
would
make an
be
account.
wonderful.
You don't need to make an account on PubMed.
I think a demonstration would be wonderful.
So why is it not minimizing it? Time.
Just press escape, right? Yes.
So if you can give me example of a college and a professor, I'll just do this on my own and
Uh,
do it for you
Okay.
if you want to see.
Paul is here in the session. Welcome, Dr.
F
Ashish
in the
Paul.
chat. F in the chat. So uh, let's look for a
Okay.
professor in Jipmer. Is that a
Okay.
good place?
Big name, Dr. A.K. Jain, Mamsi.
Eki Chen, oh, he writes books, right? Like
Yep.
what
That
is it?
physiology
Yes.
2 volume book.
Environment of
Oh,
Civil Engineering. No.
MNC.
Sorry, I mean,
I think he has retired right now.
so Eki Chen has a website of his own. I never knew this. But this is mostly for buying his stuff. It's
Book.
more of a marketing website than
Okay.
an educational.
Okay, so I think
Yeah. So I think if he has retired, then you can just log into MAMC pages and whatever you're interested in, head of the departments. Let's say you're interested in obstetrics and gynecology. You can look at whatever faculty. Oh,
coming soon.
okay, let's
So
look out. Oh, Anjali Temple. So Anjali ma'am would be the head, right?
right.
Dr. Anjali Temple. So we can just look for her. PubMed. And we have 9 results: Mrs. Adenoma of ovary. So basically, all four of them are. Let's assume all four of them are faculty or faculty in MAMC regarding about. Sorry, what should I say? Oh, this is a case report. No, I don't want to see case reports. We want to see what? We want to see actual research, right? To equation as a case report.
Okay, so prediction of this one, prediction of mortality, something was. Huh.
Yes, this looks like a original research. Indian medical science.
Okay.
So yeah, just look at this. What does she do? Critical care, received much attention. So this is about obstetric emergency, recording ICU admissions, maternal mortality. They observe deliveries amount. That's accurately predicted mortality. So now the college, the faculty, what kind of work she does, and all you need to do is email the person. Can we find out mailing? No, let's not teach people how to stalk professors. I think let's keep a separate session for that.
Stalking professors. Yes, I think
That's
the
actually
session
a
with
good.
Lovedeep will cover
Yeah.
that tomorrow.
Why
How
not
to stalk
searching
professors.
the name of faculty? Why not a topic? So the topic is actually very vast, honestly, and you'll mostly get results from American universities because they they are leaders in research for a reason. And yeah, so I think there's a question: any chance to do research from outside of India? So the process still remains the same. If you want, should I? Okay, wait. I'll see if I hope this helps.
Okay. So we are going personal here, right?
Yeah, we are going a little personal. We shouldn't, but I hope it helps. So if people have questions, they can
Removing
actually,
barriers to science.
yeah, removing some real barriers.
Gotcha.
Little, I think little too. What is happening? Why is my computer overloaded? Oh God.
You're telecasting it and then you're trying to load it. So
Yeah, it's a little too much now. Let me close STS2. Is it open? And come on, open man. So wait, I'll pause sharing for a little, for 2 seconds. I think it's crashed. Its computer is too overloaded.
Okay, so
You know why? Okay, never mind. So I'll try to.
okay, we can do that after poly session, maybe at the end. 5 minutes
So we can do
extra.
that. That's not a problem. But I really,
How to
people have a
mail.
lot of doubt. I just want to show how you can just approach any faculty without any feeling of remorse or without having any,
Yeah.
sorry, without having any self-respect. Yeah. Why is it not? It's a little really overloaded. Okay. Yeah. So I hope I was able to show you how to do these steps in clinical sciences.
No,
And I hope
we left off on basic sciences. We didn't complete it. We were at PubMed only, right?
yeah. So I took up a more sort of a realistic approach to it. So you can apply the same rules to any faculty. It's highly universal. It's not very. It's not something I did. This was not very intellectual or high level thinking involved in this. Just simple googling and PubMeding.
Yeah, and then you have to look for tools. I think like
Ashit Narang is asking questions, and of course, I don't know the answer to that. And YouTube would be a very good source for that because
okay, so
I have received my email like a month ago. And I haven't tried that.
I wanted to say something about basic sciences research. Like you don't need to actually know the whole genome processing and all. You don't need to cram your books to actually do research in biochemistry. You just have to, like as Vraj rightly pointed, you just have to Wikipedia the terms that your professor's research paper has. Just open his research paper, try understanding it, and if there are some terms that you don't understand, just Wikipedia them, search about them a little, and that's all that you need to know. Need not know the whole process of transcription and each and every of its proteins to actually do research in genomics or something like that, right?
Sorry.
Okay, so Varad, are you here?
Yeah, I paused. I'll wait. Yeah, I'm here. Let me pause
Okay.
here and give them a good example of how an email should look like. Just an idea, nothing, nothing too deep. Hopefully, here, मिल गया. कहाँ गया? Where? Okay, yeah.
Okay,
So this is
it's visible.
an email. This is an email. So you introduce yourself in the first one. In the second paragraph, you read about the research that the person is doing, such as my professor was doing SNP barcoding for genotyping Babesia micro T, as if I know what that is. High resolution melting techniques. And then in the third paragraph, you tell them what you have done. But I have done some RT-PCR. I have done this. I've done that. And then in the end, you tell them why do you want to join their research. I'm deeply passionate about doing this, doing that. And then always attach your CV. Just sorry, कहाँ गया? ये रहा CV. And then always give them a reminder, just a small reminder, because they will not reply to your emails. They will not. Always give them
You actually have to they actually like if you nab them, if you write mail 2, 3, 4 times, and they see the determination to do research with them, right? If you write mail once, then they'll think that you're spamming every other professor in the university, so it's no use replying to your
email. Thankfully, this person did reply, but Only her PA did, the professor did not, so it doesn't count really. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea. That is what we mean by, abolishing barriers. We actually mean what we say. We don't just, we're not doing this for publicity clearly, because we can get in serious trouble. So please, beware. There's a question about cross college collaboration in publication. So if you have friends, then go ahead. But uh, if you have friends in different colleges, then you can go ahead. I have friends in different colleges, but I have not gone ahead with them, because usually engineering, like students in an engineering college, are more focused towards getting a corporate job and than doing research. But if you have friends who are interested in doing research, then you can contact them. But uh, ah, to be really honest, I don't think random people will accept your request. Like, you need some sort of an introduction with them before asking them for a research. Or you can actually, or if you have a friend of a friend, then that's also possible. But just a random stranger is less likely. Your chances go down. Is that clear? Does that answer the question? Specific criteria so as to critically review the research question that we are planning to come up with. I mean, make it more plausible. Yes, there is a way to refine your research question. That is by doing a very good literature review. For example, what has been done about it? What are currently people doing? And the literature of review is a skill that you will develop over time. But it's just about going on PubMed and typing whatever you want. Like
And maybe
typing.
also contacting people who have already done work in this, right?
Actually, that's very true. So how I approach any project is, I first talk to my friends, then talk to a faculty, then do literature review. Because I don't know. That's something that I've developed over these 5 years. I don't know why. It gives me a peace of mind. It shows me that I might be thinking very high, but in reality, I need to get down a little. Do I have an example for that? Uh, do I have an example? Uh, so I can talk about. No. What should I talk about?
Uh,
Mm, oh, sorry. That's actually a very good transition. Example.
okay, let's first complete
Let's
the
move on.
fifth.
Let's move on. I think I'll come up with an answer in time. But let's
Yeah.
move on.
Hmm.
So yes, this is actually a very close question to my heart. Research is for USMLE aspirants only. The problem. This is a wrong statement, because for USMLE aspirants, research is not important. Only publication is important. All they need to do is have stuff on their CV so that they can show to a university in US that, look, I'm not a one-dimensional person, which is fine, but it does not give you an authority to do research, or it does not even give you an incentive. And I'm not saying that people who want to do USMLE do bad research, or not shouldn't do or should stop doing it. It's just that research is not uh, about getting accepted into somewhere. Research is more about liking the process of asking a question, finding a solution. So that's why I don't think that if you want to stay in India, if you want to be a clinician in India, clinician scientist in India, then research is not for you, or you'll do research later on. Who is once people around you already know how to do research, then you'll learn. That's not usually the case. You start start reading, start learning stuff already, and it should help you. And the next point is actually a very good point. Is that if you're in a government setting, then the biochemistry professor earns the same as much as the as much as an obstetric, as a gynecologist, or as much as a medicine professor, or as much as a surgeon, or a neurosurgeon, or whatever, CTVS. So let that not be a hindrance. If you want to go into a private practice, then I don't think this seminar is right for you. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, so sorry about that. And so don't think that if you do research, you might not be able to earn money. If you want to, have an integrity, work in a government setting, not think too much about how much you're pay, how much you're charging patients. Then research is a necessity first of all, and second, uh, it won't decrease your pay, and it won't decrease how much you make and take home. The next more practical question is statistics comes in PG entrance exams, and I don't know because I haven't given any, but I've been told by my seniors that that statement is true. So I'll take that for its face value. And the final statement, which I like the most, is fear of embarrassment. If if a new study in your field of research comes tomorrow, and if you are not able to understand or explain it to your colleagues, then it's not a very good thing. It's basically not remembering the names of the drugs in front of a patient, but instead you're doing this in front of a faculty who can trash you back.
Right.
So, so that's also a very good reason to get into research, I guess. I don't know. So someone from YouTube is asking, since I have not done any research and CV is empty, how do I start? So I think the last two slides were about that. This is how you start exactly. And I also gave you a live demonstration, which should be able to answer your queries. And I also gave you a template of how to write an email. Then finally, we'll move on to okay. So now we are done with our prepared remarks. These were some prepared questions that we had, and yeah, now we are actually free to discuss and have some fun. So, oh, what happened? So sorry. And finally, curtain rises. So, if you have any questions, any chance to do research? Oh, no, no, ये हो गया है. Prospects of cross college collaboration भी हो गया है. Better to personally approach the faculty. Yes, it is always better to personally approach the faculty. But you should always send them an email too. But it is always
But
better
it's
to.
like it's difficult for them to just shoo you away online on in person meeting, but they can actually ignore your emails, right?
Yes, that is true. It is better to approach the faculty in person. Let's see if we have missed any questions. How to make an account on PubMed? I am illiterate in that. Should all research
Like,
done by you is published?
yeah.
That is false. I have no publications as of today, but I have done research. So yeah, it is not necessary for you to be a published author to be called a researcher. It's all about the. So for me, it's all about the process, the asking a question, looking for answers and stuff like
Right, and it's for me it's about publication.
that.
Like both
So,
actually, it's not something.
so what I usually, not all papers are accessible. Yes, that is true. So for that, we cannot say it out loud because it would be illegal. Uh, but there are ways to go on about it. You should talk to people in your college who will help you out. We can't say it on air.
Okay, it's that illegal.
But I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. People have said it. I don't want to say it. Simple. If there is something to say,
Cool.
please go ahead. Publication is required, not research for USM. Oh, uh,
Uh,
okay, that is true. Publication cannot happen without research, but you get my point, right?
okay, Lavdeep has a very good thing. That thing to access papers rhymes with my dub.
Sorry.
Lavdeep has put a very good statement that that thing to find access papers that are out of reach has rhymes with my dub.
My dub, yeah.
It's
My
so
dub.
it's like my
My
dub,
dub.tw.
something like my dub.
My dub.tw. Made by a very
Right.
good Russian lady. So we all, pay homage to her in this session. I don't know her name, but I know how she looks because I've seen her waving at me a lot of times. So what I'm talking about, you should,
Okay.
you should joke.
Yep. Okay, so more questions?
Yeah. So I cannot believe it. We took an hour to do this. Yeah, pretty nice.
Mhm.
Let's do this last
Okay, so
transition again. I like it.
one question is how to find good journals.
How to find good journals. Yes. So these are questions like this are, most influential medical journals according to Wikipedia. There is a scientific paper on which is the most influential journal. That's pretty nice, but also useless. Uh-huh. This is the list: BMJ, NEJM, JAMA, Lancet, Medical Reports, Annals of Internal Medicine, American Journal of Medicine, Clinical Science, Pediatrics, Oncology, JAMA Psychiatry, Journal of Cancer, or we can have a list of medical journals over here. Uh, so this is no. These are all
Also,
the
it depends. Like, why do you need journal? If you need looking for publication, then you should know, right?
no, no. If you want to
How?
read good research, then also you should know which are good journals.
Uh-huh.
So my session tomorrow, I'll be reviewing a paper from NEJM. So NEJM is the gold standard. NEJM has the highest impact. The papers are well written. Everything is very good, very good, very good. So you take that as gold standard and compare everything with that. So I'll show you uh, what is NEJM or NEJM impact factor. So wait, it's 70. Okay, so 70 is the world's best impact factor. Then I'll show you NMJI impact factor.
What is impact factor?
Impact factor is it's a complex mathematical calculation that goes into it, but it's basically how much a journal is worth or how much a paper published in that journal is worth. So it's all
Okay.
relative. And this is the impact factor of a good Indian journal. It is 0.5. It is pretty low, but never it's not that important. Then we have IGMR impact factor, which is 1.5. So IGMR is one of the best and journals in India, and it has an impact factor of about 1.5. So a best Indian journal is 1.5. Best journal in the world is 70. And there is like, and its rank is around, I think it's around 190. So the journal's rank is 190. But still getting published here is a good, I would consider as a good thing.
But
Average
IGMR
number
takes
is
a
better.
lot of time to process your paper. So, like, if you're looking for a quick publication, then like you should try something like
Then
NMJ,
you
right?
should go for student IGMR. I think people should make more of this facility. There is a student section of Indian Journal of Medical Research where you can get your research published, and usually these topics are not not great, but they're also not bad. So the role of profile of UTI in peds, neutrophil to NL ratio, stress anxiety among medical undergraduates. So if you're doing stuff like this, you can send it here in Indian Journal of Medical Research students section and submit article right here. Journalsweb.igmr. Make your own ID. Don't be afraid of doing all this. So let's move on to the next question. So in your CV, how do you show that you have done a research? What certificate and proof do we have of our study? So in CV, I write the name of the title of the project and the professor under which I did the project. These are the two things that you should write in your CV. Publication is something publication, there should be a separate heading for publications. And certificate and proof, you can ask your faculty to give you letters. That's usually a good enough certificate or a proof. Or if you can you can save an email from the faculty that that gives you an electronic proof that you were actually involved in the study. So actually, a lot of patent disputes are solved like this. So if you are developing a new product and you want and someone else is doing the same, and both of you so if so if the, so if the other team applies for a patent first, then you can show your email thread that look at the dates on this, and we knew about this idea earlier and they have just copied from us. So if an email thread is important to prove that, an email thread is also pretty important to be a good certificate of proof. But a letter on the letterhead from your faculty is good. That's the best. So just so Arshid Narang is asking how to access restricted articles from PubMed. So it's very intuitive. You just copy and paste the link. Yeah, you copy the link and you paste it on the search bar of Sci-Hub. The entire Sci-Hub website has only one. It has only this. Type anything over here and it should be fine.
Okay, shit.
Yeah.
So I think we can
I think
start our next session.
I hope people people learn something from this. We added to the knowledge base, which is what research is all about. And I hope we stood up to our ideals and promises and morals and beliefs and ethics and everything else we hold dear to ourselves.
Right. So I think I'll make Polly the presenter and then we can start.
Dead end. Oh, really good question.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Paulina, you are the presenter.
Dr. Paul, should I stop sharing? I think I should stop sharing myself, no? Or have I stopped?
You have stopped sharing with it.
Okay, thank you. So I'll also mute myself now. So if you, okay, I'll text you.
Okay. Well, we have one more question.
Go ahead.
Can we start research independent of any faculty?
Yes, you can. But then you have to know a lot. You have to know the entire process yourself. That's the problem with independence, is that it's more hard work. But if you are, and if you're willing to, I will support you.
Okay, you can always mail Varad, right?
Yes, sure, you can.
Okay, so can you share your email ID? Or is it Googleable? I think.
No,
Google it.
don't Google.
Don't Google it.
Share it. I think you should email to the Scientific Society email. No? That's actually a better way. So a lot of people can answer, not just me.
Right, right. All this.
So you should share the Scientific Society email. That's the reason why we made that email.
Right. So one
Are
second.
you right?
I think one moment.
Yeah. So, keep the emails coming. And let's
Hello.
welcome Vasishtha Poli Sethi, the
Namaskar.
maverick, the legend himself, has
Wow.
graced us with his presence.
So I think I cannot share my screen.
Uh,
Presenter Fernando.
I've made you the presenter. You can start sharing your screen. Okay.
Is the new presenter. Vasishtha Poli Sethi is a great person, as you'll realize as you watch his slideshow. But his career highlights, we will give you his career highlights. So he was responsible for making MBBS students. Sorry, who was making MBBS students? Sorry, who was it's me? I'm like, okay. So he is responsible for making MBBS students eligible for the Corona scholarship. He applied to the Corona people and got their threshold down for us. And then he went on to become a Corona scholar himself, go to Yale, do his research on uh, computational psychology, computational psychiatry, and currently he's doing his residency in psychiatry in AIIMS. He has also visited a lot of Indian institutions such as the NCBS, the Monsoon School, the IISC to do a lot of cool stuff. He worked on zebrafish models, and he's interested in doing cool stuff, and he knows what he's talking about. So, Vashishtha
Uh,
Poliseti,
yeah,
are
I'm
you
so
happy
sorry
with that
to
introduction?
be again. I quit the meeting for a while. I had to
No,
restart.
no,
Could you
that's the next. Could I
could you
introduce you again?
no. Could you make me the presenter?
I can't. Amulya can.
Hmm. So can you guys see?
Yes. Have a great meeting.
Yes.
1 second. दिख रहा है अभी?
Yes, it's visible.
Cool. Fine. So, hello everyone. I'm Vasishtha Poli. I'm a first year resident in the Department of Psychiatry here at AIIMS, and I did my MBBS from AIIMS as well. I think Bharat has sort of introduced me, so I'll go ahead because we are already kind of late. So yeah, so the topic given to me was why research. So can everyone hear me? All that's fine, right?
Yes, you're audible. Good to go.
Affirmative.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think there are some good questions coming up on YouTube as well, like I saw in the previous session. So if someone could gather them all together, we can take the questions at the end. Cool? Fine. So yeah, the topic given to me was why research, but I think we'll get into much more stuff. I'll have a short intro sort of thing, and then we'll get into the main part, which is why research. And how to actually, I think Amulya told me there's another session about how to go ahead with research, so I'll be keeping it extremely short. And finally, yeah, this was also asked by Amulya, my research, my experience with research, not my research experience during medical school. And then we'll open to questions. Cool? Okay. So usually you can see this kind of a distinction where people say pure science is followed by clinical research, then you have public health. So clinical research is informed by pure sciences, and then you have public health, which is informed by clinical research. But the problem here is it is always not so straightforward. And so this is not very clear cut, distinct, what do you say, identities, and it's like a spectrum. So between pure sciences and clinical research, even though it's a spectrum, there is some sort of a rarefaction sort of a thing in between. And clinical research and public health, again, there's some sort of a rarefaction. So what you require there is a translational approach. So you need people who can convert the knowledge we have in our pure sciences to apply them in the clinics. So that's what we call bench to bedside. Bench is the lab and bedside is your hospital. So how do you take stuff from the lab and get it to the bedside so that you can help your patient? And then there is. Can you guys hear me? It says my connection is slow. Just let me know if
Yes,
there's
you're
a problem.
audible. You're audible.
Yes.
You're audible.
No problem.
Yeah. So and then what happens is there are many things we know in the clinics, but they're not applied in public health. We need another translational approach where we take stuff from the clinic audio, where we can take stuff from the clinics and take it all the way to the community.
Can you repeat your last line? Your voice broke at that.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like we have a translational framework for pure science and clinical research between pure science and clinical research, the bridge between the two. We need to have a bridge between clinical research and public health as well. So to explain this, let's take an example. So can you see my pointer? I think let's take a pointer. Yeah. So how does HPV cause cervical cancer? What is its molecular oncogenesis? So those questions are pure science questions. Use inspired pure science. We'll get to that later. But this stuff would be done by molecular biologists, cancer biologists, oncologists, those sort of guys who are studying the proteins, the DNA, how is the cell infected, that sort of stuff. And say I'm interested and I go ahead and say, can we actually check these proteins in the blood? So if they are in the blood, then can we make a diagnostic out of it? So that is actually translating what we know from pure sciences so that we can help someone in the bedside. So now that you have used some technology and you have made some microfluidics or engineering and you have designed it, and then you have a small blood test which can do it, then you have to test how good it is doing. So that is a part of your clinical research. So is it superior to existing diagnostic methods? Is it worth buying the test? Or that sort of thing is clinical research. And then to take it to the community, you'll say, "Ki, haan, bhai, abhi to we have a good test kit with us. Let's see if we deploy this test out in the community. Do we reduce the prevalence of cancer?" So that is a public health question you're asking. You're saying cervical cancer बहुत common hai India mein, and then you want to do something about it. Let's say if we deploy this test out in the community, can we have a reduction in mortality or reduction in cancer? So although this question you're asking, the public question you're asking might say yes, the test helps. It might always not translate into policy. Policy is where the country is doing something for the community. So it is actually happening now. So that sort of thing is balanced by the translational approach, where you check is the test we are using acceptable by the community. Like for cervical cancer, you have screening tests like Viability, you must have heard, which are perspicuum tests. They suffer with low community acceptability because those are perspicuum tests. A blood test could be more acceptable by the community, but then it'll get costlier. So is it worth the increase in cost? Is it worth the increase in community acceptability? And does this balance out the reduction in mortality you get through cancer? Is it overall a good economic approach? So all these sort of questions are translating these about this diagnostic test into something about the public health domain, that this test can reduce cancer. But how good is it at doing that? So that is where your translational approach at a public health level comes. So this kind of explains, so this is pure sciences, this is clinical sciences, this is public health, this is translating between pure and clinical, this is translating between clinical and public health. So these distinctions are not very rigid, and I've just outlined it to make you understand. So this is kind of intro to what sort of questions we can ask. So the question is, why is MBBS a pretty good starting point for research? And by research, I mean biomedical research. So obviously MBBS is not a good starting point to do quantum mechanics, but why is it a good starting point for doing this sort of biomedical sort of work? So the answer is, if you see this diagram over here, so all this beach mein, whatever you see, this main axial thing, how does HPV cause cancer? What is the sensitivity, specificity of the test? Can the screening test be performed in the community? These sort of questions we have direct training in. So you must have studied about this in first, second year. You might have studied this about in your final years, and then you might have studied again in PSM. So we have our core training to answer such sort of biomedical research questions. We might not be fit in answering these sort of questions, like the economic aspect of it or the technological aspect of making the diagnostics. But what remains is that these axial sort of questions, you already have some sort of qualification to answer them. So if you want to specialize in, MBBS gives a really good scope to get into answering any of these questions. So that is one reason I think MBBS is a good starting point for doing research. There's another thing that it's not a part of the curriculum or it's not encouraged and that sort of thing. But yeah, but the knowledge wise, you have all the knowledge to dive into this framework. So if you see the translational aspect where we were designing the test, so that requires people from say microfluidics or mechanical engineering or design or some people who can market it. That sort of a team, which is from varying disciplines, right? And all of you guys need to work together. So if you are working in your own department and you don't have contact to people with anywhere from the outside, it gets very difficult. And that's why you need people working from various places, and then you come together and you make something new. So that's interdisciplinary work. Transdisciplinary is something which transcends these boundaries, even. So, like everyone is doing everything. And this, I think, you can see best in neuroscience, where there are physicists working on neuroscience, there's medical doctors working in neuroscience, there is psychologists, there is economists, everyone is doing neuroscience. So there the boundaries are transcended and everyone uses the same methods to answer questions in their own field. So yeah, why am I telling you all this? Because in this sort of a framework, you can see that when you're doing pure sciences, you have math, physics, pure biology, molecular biology. When you're doing translation, at least in this example, you had engineering, biotechnology, then there's entrepreneurship. And when you're doing clinical research, there's a lot of statistics that come in, there's quality improvement, there's data science, behavior change, economics, everything. So these are just examples of fields you will come across with when you're trying to answer questions in any of these areas. So why is this important? Because I think when you're dealing with so many diverse areas, and you get to learn a lot, and some people actually like learning, and if you like learning stuff, then research is a very good avenue. And yes, so another thing I wanted to say is when you're doing a bachelor's course or when you're training, what you develop is this sort of the stem of the teeth. That is your knowledge, that is your core knowledge. And when you're doing some sort of a research project, say this is the head of the team. When you're reading stuff randomly, exploring stuff, say you're an MBBS student but you're studying microfluidics somehow, so that's where you expand your scope of knowledge, right? That's not a part of your core curriculum, but that is extra stuff. So we need people who know stuff from other areas, because interdisciplinary works gets easier when you know stuff from other backgrounds as well. And this expansion of the top of the T can be both exploratory and need based. So say somehow you're interested in mechanical engineering, microfluidics, and you study up, and then someone comes and says let's do a HPV diagnostic, then you can say कि हाँ इसमें microfluidics use कर सकते हैं, because you already know that, and having knowledge in other domains actually helps. Otherwise it can work the other way around too. So you are an HPV scientist and you want to make a diagnostic, and you know that microfluidics can be used, but you need to read up more about it. That's how you expand your what do you say, your T. So एक और चीज many people, so the as I told you, the scope of MBBS is very large and the T ka width is only very big. You get what I'm saying? So that's how MBBS I think is a good course for getting into research, because the stem of the T itself is very wide. Other courses are very specialized. MBBS is a very open course in that way. And what I mean by the STEM is important too is that many people start taking this stuff very seriously, and then they start reading random stuff, and then they forget about the core curriculum, and they say ki MBBS bahar mein jaye, we study microfluidics and mechanical engineering. So that doesn't work that way. So what value you bring to an interdisciplinary team is your core knowledge. You are in the team because you have the top wala tea, but what value you're bringing essentially to the team is because of your core knowledge, and that should not be compromised for the sake of the upar wala. I don't know what you call it, the hat.
So that means like we should be diligent in our studies and not just focus
Yeah, I'm
on.
old enough to say that now. कि पढ़ाई मत छोड़ो. And
Okay. And finally,
yeah,
Professor announced.
so I would say कि if there's someone who knows pura Harrison, everything about Harrison, he or she might become a good doctor, but for research, even if you don't have that sort of textbookish knowledge, but if you have knowledge from various domains, that helps more than having just the core knowledge. I think you get it sort of. Okay. So, interim summary, we classified biomedical research. We have said that there's need for people with interdisciplinary knowledge, and MBBS has a fat stem in the T, and that itself says there's a wide scope. You can, in biomedical research, you can jump in anywhere. Both the horizontal and the vertical part of the T are important. Don't compromise one for the sake of the other. Cool? Let's move ahead. Bye. So if you see, if you have friends from engineering backgrounds or pure science backgrounds, you must have seen that they do a lot of research because they have an incentive in doing research. Because agar koi engineering wala banda, they're going for an internship or they're going for corporate internship. They're doing that because that will help them get a good job. That will reflect on their CV. And for science students, that'll help them get a good PhD and that'll give you good research experience on your CV. So even if you're not per se very motivated, like the carrot part of the motivation is not there, the stick works because you need to have a good job at the end of your engineering. And in MBBS, as such, if you're planning to stay back in India, there's no point in CV building. Like if you want to do a PG, you clear an exam, you'll get through it, and then you can do research in your residency. So, and doing research, okay, I didn't come to that, but doing research in residency is not the best time to explore. You will be fixated on one topic. MBBS is the best time for exploration. So, yeah, there's no inherent incentive to do research in MBBS. People are doing it because they are interested. The only incentive I can see, materialistic or tangible incentive, is that you can get into USMLE because that sort of exposure works. And the kind of thing we have is that you need to have innate motivation. So it's only the carrot. There's no stick while doing MBBS may research, okay? Unless you're going for USMLE and you need to have 2 publications by the end of your MBBS, which is fine. So because there are lesser people who have innate motivation for whatever reasons, there are eventually lesser opportunities. And but I think there are 200 people or something live on this, so there are enough people. Not as many as obviously engineers or pure science students, but yeah, I think we can build a community and then keep this growing. So it essentially boils down to what you value. So do you value stuff like, so valuing is something like you appreciate it for the sake of it. It does not give you tangible materialistic outcomes like being more creative. You're being creative not because it gives you money, but you are being creative because you like being creative or you value being creative. And you're learning not for an exam, but you're learning because you like learning. You're curious not because someone has forced you to become curious, because you are inherently curious. You want to explore because you like exploring. It's not that someone has told you to explore. And then research is actually beautiful. And I mean, like when you see, I'll come to some pictures towards the end, and you'll see that they're so beautiful that you would want to do research because, yeah, that's how it is. And so these are all good, cool stuff, fancy stuff. But when you are doing research, you would need dedication, focus, and perseverance, which is kind of tough, but yeah, which is essential because otherwise you would be leaving projects in 1 month and that doesn't yield anything special. So this is from Ramani Kahal, who is the father of neuroscience. So he wrote a book around 100, 120 years back, Advice for a Young Investigator. That's a good book if you want to read. It's old. But that's where he says that people are very motivated and interested because they like all the sort of fancy stuff, learning, curiosity, exploration, but they lack focus, perseverance, and dedication. And that leaves them out of the game. So what I actually like in research is this thing like when you finish elementary school, like you have some knowledge, and then when you finish high school, you have some more knowledge. With a bachelor's degree, you add some sort of small part to that knowledge. And when you're reading research papers, when you're doing review of literature, it takes you to the frontiers of human knowledge. So you start recognizing what do we know, what do we not know. And once you're fixated on a research topic, you are actually working on the boundary of human knowledge. Like at this side, there's stuff you know, and at this side, there's stuff nobody knows. So you basically are at the boundary, and especially when you're towards the end of your research project, when you have that plot in front of you, when you have the summary statistic, or when you're seeing under a slide, and you find out something, even however mundane it is, like say something like acceptability of HPV test. Nobody knows the answer to that question, right? So you are the only one at that point of time when you have analyzed the data and you're seeing it on screen. You are the only one on earth. It sounds dramatic, but yeah, that's how it is. Who knows the answer to that question? And that's what separates you from the rest of the world at that moment. And it's kind of surreal. And obviously, you are going to publish it and you're going to tell other people about it. That's how you increase the frontiers of human knowledge. Might look insignificant, but yeah, that's where you are. So to me, I think looking under the slide, that special thing, or having that plot in front of you, which shows that, yeah, this is the result, is kind of extremely cool. But yeah, the process is also kind of very gratifying. So when you look back, you did all this 3 months, 4 months of work, especially in smaller research projects, and then you have the end point, and that's pretty gratifying. So can you guys identify? Chat में बताओ ये कौन लोग हैं? Who are these people? Can somebody put up on chat? Who is there on top left? Top left is Niels Bohr. Who is on top right? Pasteur. Yes, Louis Pasteur. Who is there on bottom right? So this is your applied and basic research quadrants. And if you are in MBBS, so the kind of research that Bohr did, so structure of atom or that sort of pure physics sort of stuff, if you're in MBBS, you have missed that boat already. But yeah, so the kind of pure science that happens in biomedical research is very use inspired. So Pasteur did groundbreaking stuff in microbiology, but that was use inspired. So there was some quest for fundamental understanding to understand what is the basis of disease process. But was it when what was the intent of Pasteur? The intent of Pasteur was always to bring out something that could help people or could affect clinical medicine. But that was not a consideration for Bohr, which is fine. So obviously what Bohr did obviously helped what we are doing in physics or engineering today. That doesn't mean that. But what matters is the intent with which Bohr started. He didn't start with an intent to help people, or Hardy or Ramanujan. They didn't start off with an intent to help people. But obviously their research affects what people do in their daily lives today. And what I want to say here is that many people in the chat or here might be, especially in this part of your phase, Pasteur phase, or not very much in the pure applied research. You'll start getting into applied research when you actually see problems in the real world, and then you'll start finding solutions for it. So searching for science to solve problems is a very Edison sort of an approach. Like you need science to solve real world problems. So तुम्हें दिख रहा है कि गरीब लोग मर रहे हैं because of infant mortality or whatsoever. So you need to answer that question in a scientific way. You need scientific tools for that. And then there's another set of people who are interested in science per se, and then they find it cool, and then they're searching for problems to do science. So this can happen both ways. Usually the Upar wale people are the Edison kind of guys, and these people are more like Pastor. So it's not like one is less important or the other is more important. We need both, and we need a translational bridge between the two. So summing up, why? Learning, curiosity, exploration, creativity, all the cool stuff. If you value that, then you are a good candidate for doing research, and you should be doing research because you'll enjoy doing it. Contributing to field, contributing to society. So if you're doing something in the pure sciences, say microbiology, in your lifetime or in a decade or two, it might not affect society as such, but if it will definitely affect the field if you do good work. And if you're doing public health, obviously there's implications for society. Pushing frontiers of human knowledge, explained that a lot, and meeting new interesting like-minded people. So you might see that at least people on this chat, I think that 50 on GoTo and maybe 100 or more on YouTube. You might be like a minority in your college, like there'll be 10 people who will be doing research and excited about it. But when you come together like this, you'll start meeting like-minded people, which I think is very cool. Which is like you never knew such people existed. Always you thought that there were very less of that kind. So that's a good area to meet people, and it keeps your brain working. MBBS is a very rote learning and mundane sort of a course. And whenever you're solving a research question or asking a research question, needs a lot of brain work, and we're not used to that logical reasoning, especially when we are studying medicine. It is a break from toxic mundane academics. So improves people's lives. It's a duty of it. I believe doing research is a doctor's duty because ultimately we have to help the patient. And if there is something we don't know, how will you help the patient? By finding out what you don't know. And that is what research is all about. And ultimately, tangible outcomes, which are CV, papers, publications, USMLE, which I think is a consideration for many. So what I want to focus is, it is a byproduct. It should not be the goal of doing research. And so if you are doing research, a publication is the byproduct, but not the main goal of doing research. Yeah, and you should do research because it's cool. I'm not saying it's cool for everyone, but if you find that it's cool, there's no reason not to do it. So you shouldn't be doing science to publish a paper, but you should be publishing a paper because you're doing science. So you have pushed the frontiers of human knowledge. Kya fayda uska if you're not telling anyone, right? So you need to publish a paper and then say, ki dekho, I found out this and I pushed the frontier of human knowledge. So then it's worthwhile. Otherwise, there's no point pushing frontiers and doing nothing. But publishing a paper should not be your main goal. And most of science has become like that. But yeah, I hope you get the essence of this, right? You shouldn't be running after those materialistic or tangible outcomes. Those should be byproducts and not the primary goals. Cool. So we have finished why, and I think, we have some time. We can go ahead with how. I'll be going through this quickly. I think most of the doubts that are coming in, at least in the previous session, were regarding how to do this, how to do that. Let's see if we can cover some of it. It's a summary I'm going through quickly. You have anything to say, Amulya?
There was one question which I think we can deal with why, which was how do you know that if research in a field has reached a dead end? So it's like
A dead end?
yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. We have fields where we have explored everything. Even old fields like say taxonomy, people are finding new species every day, and anatomy is like sort of dead, but then there's other frontiers of anatomy like histology or that sort of stuff where spectroscopic and stereoscopic sort of microscopy which is coming in. So that sort of structural anatomy you can get in. So there's no dead end per se. There are hot fields. Obviously, anatomy is a hot field where more. So yeah, I don't think there's a dead end as such. You can always.
I think what the question is asking is a practical dead end, not like a theoretical dead end. But कि मेरे लिए कब, like for me when it is a dead end.
So practical dead end obviously something like if you want to do optogenetics research, you want to put electrodes in the human brain. That's a practical dead end. We don't have such technology which
No,
or
no, no, no,
ethical.
not practical dead end as in practical dead end for a
Practical dead
researcher.
end
Practical dead end
feasibility
for
for
an
an
MBBS
MBBS.
student. So for me, I
Feasibility.
have a certain rule is that if you talk to 2 to 3 professors and all 2 of them or from multiple sources, you get the idea that work on this has been done. And if you want to push the frontier, you'll have to go a lot deeper than you can in your MBBS. Then that is a dead end. You need to have multiple resources, multiple sources telling you that this field has been pushed to a certain extent that if you want to explore it further, you'll need a lot more sophisticated tools. And if you are willing to learn them, then it is not a dead end. But if you are not willing to learn them, then that is a dead end.
Yeah, so usually the tools wala practical dead end comes in as feasibility wala thing. Obviously, you
Ah,
cannot do very high end research at an MBBS level.
hmm.
So there are some obvious limitations, but that doesn't mean that. What I want to say is that any unanswered question is at the frontier of
Yes,
knowledge.
yes.
That so like there's no big or small question. There might be big or small in impact, but the question remains unanswered in both. And it's I think worth pursuing whatever the question is. And if you give me two questions and say if I'm a sort of an Edison sort of a guy, both are unanswered, I would prefer the one which is more impactful to society and one which is not uh, even remotely so. And if I have to fund them, I'll go for the second one. Anyway, I don't know if I'm answering that question or blabbering, but yeah. So how? So start off. It's never too late or never too early. I think there are many questions about this. Don't wait for a research question. Nobody will have research questions. You just join a lab and then there's something going on and then you realize, then you start reading stuff and then you say, ki, हाँ, इनको ये नहीं पता था, इनको ये नहीं पता था, and then you can start getting into research then. Or usually what happens is you join a lab, you're assigned a project, and then you start doing it. And then you start exploring the lacunae in literature. Like that's a good way to do it if you want to pursue the field further. You know what is missing in that field. STC is a good beginning point. I've heard that the selection rates have reduced drastically in these years. But so yeah, you need not be disheartened if it's not coming. It's like the carrot and stick wale mein STS is the stick. You have a deadline, you have to finish it. Otherwise, most research projects don't get finished. So if you don't get STS, they give you like 7k rupees, which I don't think is enough carrots for anyone. But I don't know if it's increased now. But yeah, it's mostly the stick that works. So they have a deadline ki haan December tak you have to submit. Then you'll go do the work. So that's how STS is good. So you don't need to get disheartened. If you are enough motivated, then no one is going to stop you. Show initiative and interest. So what happens is professors are usually continuously spammed or nagged by many undergraduates, and they tend to not take them seriously because they know कि एक बार दो बार आएंगे and then they'll not come again. And so if you are showing initiative interest, you go for the third time, you go for the fourth time, then they start realizing, this guy seems interested, let's give him some work. So that's how you show interest. Write to pure science or research organizations for informal or pro bono stints. Yeah, so you need to have, there's affordability wala issue. So if there's someone in your town, in your city, usually big cities have many research institutes like Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata. These are the big ones. You have ICERs, IASCs, everything, right? So pure science research institutes, the kind of research that happens, the quality and culture of research is much, much better than medical institutes, at least as of now. So, yep, that's one thing. Writing to them, like I think Varad was showing how to write to people, do not spam them, write to them nicely. And simple research can be sometimes very, very impactful, both to the field or society. You don't need high-tech machines like, say, I don't have a next-gen sequencer. How will I do research? No, you can ask simpler questions. Uh, Someone is saying something. I think you need to mute, Varad. Chalo, yeah. So the other thing is the idea to jump. I've seen many questions: how to go abroad, how to go to Hopkins, how do you do that? So that comes slowly. You need to first build some research experience in college. Then you will find what areas of interest you like. Then you start going outside college in India. If the essential goal is to go abroad, then better to go somewhere else, somewhere outside your institute. and then work with another lab or work with another organization. So many of these public health institutions are very underfunded, and they need people or volunteers usually. So if you go, nobody is going to stop you. And yeah, so first you go do stuff in your college, then do outside college, and then you can think of going abroad. So so it works that way. And most of the people in abroad will, or even people outside your college, will be like, why should I take you? Because I have done so and so work and I have so and so interest in the area. So that's how it works. Explore as much as possible. MBBS is the time. People say MBBS is pretty hectic, but residency will be more hectic. Uh, yeah. How to go outside college? There are formal programs. There's CCMB Hyderabad, Center for Molecular Biology. They have their winter program. They have the summer program, all for medical students. Then there's IS fellowship where medical students are eligible. There's a DIPS, which is a 3 to 4 day program, which is like a sensitization camp. And Corona is there, for which you have 3 months of time to go abroad. So abroad because everyone is interested. Informal, pro bono, when you're self-funding, you're not getting paid for your research. You can write to any prof, show that you're interested. Do not spam them. Do not write generic emails like, I love your field, I've read 20 research papers of yours. Say what you like in their field, why you want to work in their lab. Show that you've actually gone through their work. Then there is higher chances that they'll reply to you. And yeah, many public health research organizations are in search for people because they're chronically underfunded. So if you just go to them, they'll take you. MBBS is the time. Break out of silos and explore. So already the STEM is wide. It's time to expand the hat. Networking. So networking is very, very important. How did you get to know about this event? Who told you about this event? How do you get to know about further such events, or how do you get to know about further such programs? So that is when you meet like-minded people and find mentors in your college. And when you're sufficiently old, 2 to 3 years older, you can become mentors to juniors. And then you have to build a community. So if you're like the only one interested in your college, maybe there are people who are entering college who are interested. So you have to build the community right from there. And get on Twitter. A lot of notifications keep coming on there. That's a nice place to start. So how are we doing on time? 43. I think we are doing fine. So 10 minutes about my experience with research in MBBS. Are we doing good on time, Amulya?
We have enough
Or is
time.
there? I hope someone is collecting questions so that we can take them at the end. Cool. What do you say?
Cool. That's good.
Sure. My experience in MBBS. So why did I choose medicine? So actually, I loved biology. I loved ecology, evolution, behavior, especially not human behavior, animal behavior, ethology. And I wanted to do biology as a career, but I didn't want to become a doctor. So I thought I'll take up MPC, which is PCM, like maths, physics, chemistry after 10, and then get into a pure science institute or one of those IITs where you have biology departments. So that was the initial plan. Then I joined PCM. In our state, I'm from Hyderabad. We couldn't do both biology and maths both. We had to choose one of the two. So I ended up choosing PCM, and then I joined the place. And maths was very tough for me. I was totally what do you say? Whatever the adjective is, and I couldn't take it, and then I quit, and then I chose biology as PCB because we had to choose one of the two. I was like, कि अंत में biology करना है, why do PCM and get so much irritated with maths? I later realized my fear of maths is pretty irrational because I started loving calculus when we were doing in physics and later as well. But yeah, that was the 2 months where I felt it was horrible, and then I quit. And then I ended up becoming a doctor. So my idea was that you could do research being a doctor, which is a very valid statement. And I thought, why not go that way? Because I could ignore maths that way. And yeah, so in my second year, I worked in a visual neurobiology lab where we were working on light exposure with retinas. This was in the department of anatomy within AIIMS. So this was my STS project. So I had enough motivation to finish the project, not necessarily till the extent of a research paper. This was a small project, a part of an MD student's thesis. So this actually gave me, I was kind of introduced to molecular techniques before, some sort of how to run gels, how to take slides, how to make slides. But yeah, so this was a project because we actually designed the research project and we went ahead with it. So that sort of an experience comes only when you're doing a whole project. And the point is, when you actually look at these slides, these look extremely beautiful. I don't know if you guys like it in the screen, but when you make the slide and then you at the end of the day see this, you can see the inner nuclear layer, the outer nuclear layer. These are the rods and the cones. So it's beautiful. Like I love looking at these pictures. So they're inherently beautiful. Like there's no price tag to it. So yeah, I killed an animal for it, but that is for science. So this was me. This is me uh, sectioning. So this is cryo sectioning, where you take frozen sections. You might have studied that in surgery or pathology, where they take frozen sections in the OT, and they take sections from the OT, in from the sample sent by the OT. And yeah, so basically after my second year, I was kind of disillusioned by MBBS. Started with clinics, and it was like, oh, this is very rote and this is very mundane, and there's a lot of things to remember. There's no critical reasoning. And then research was a good what do you say good escape from that sort of a thing, because we had to think a lot. Even while making a buffer, you need to get back to Henderson Hasselbalch and decide how to decide the pH of your buffer, how much of phosphate to mix, that sort of stuff. So it brings back all that things from 11th and 12th, which are comparatively more interesting. Then in my third year, I worked with zebrafish in a motor circuits lab in NCBS Bangalore. And this was with Dr. Vatsala Perumalai. And I'm very grateful for her to give me the opportunity, because I just wrote an email and she said yes. So this was a single email conversation. And then before she said yes, and then 1 week before I said I'm coming, then she said yes. And then I just went. And they were pretty cool people. And yeah, so I was working on zebrafish. We had male, female separated in a tank, and it was separated by a barrier. And if you lift the barrier, male, female, you let them dance, mate, and do their stuff. And within a few minutes, you get eggs. And you have eggs at the bottom of the tank. And my work was especially to study the behavior of these embryos. What these embryos do is after they grow up a little, like these are, this is the zygote, if you can see. This is a single cell. This is the first cell of the zebrafish. And this is the yolk sac. So ignore this. And I could actually see in real time the cell dividing. And there's nothing more fascinating than that. Seeing a single cell dividing is something you will never forget. And it's just so beautiful that, yeah, so this is one thing which inspires me to do research, because this is usually in pure sciences that you can actually see stuff under the slide or under the microscope. So you could see that this sort of cleavage being formed and then going from 2 to 4 to 8, and that's just fantastic. You'll never forget if you see at least once under the microscope. And so yeah, so the zebrafish lays the eggs, the female ones, and then you collect the eggs. So my work was to follow up after 16 hours to, I think, 24 hours. So they would lay eggs in the morning, and I would go to the lab at night at 11 or 10, and then follow them up all throughout night. So this is the campus. This is a beautiful campus. And I would record videos of these embryos. So they have a tail by then, by 16 hours, and then they're flapping their tail. So the work that was given to me is that they're flapping their tail. Tell me how many times do they flap their tail. So obviously you can't sit and count, because this is for 8 hours, and also there's so many zebrafish, right? You can't keep track of all of them. So you had to use the computer, and I did not know how to code back then. So I told them, Dekho, I don't know how to code. How am I supposed to do that? And they said, that's why you're here. You're here to learn. How about learning how to code? And so that was a good experience for me to learn to code. So what we did was some image processing, basic image processing, figuring out where the embryos are, and then figuring out when they beat their tails. So That was a cool learning experience. And then this is me at the computational neuroscience summer school, which was the next year in my final year. And so at this point of time, I started accepting that medicine is actually a much better thing for me, because pure science seemed like, and most of the regret seemed to start weaning off, because pure sciences was too pure for me. They were talking esoteric stuff and totally random, pure blue sky stuff that did not seem very applicable to me as a doctor, because I was already in the field. And MBBS does that to you. You see people suffering and dying, and these people are working on zebrafish. You see that it's not so great because you're not directly helping anyone. Obviously, the work I did, or the work the lab was doing, will help understand motor circuits better. But how will it affect clinical practices like 100 years or 50 years down the line? So as a doctor, I started accepting that pure science is has its own place. But what I was interested in more sort of applied or translational work, taking the pure science to the clinics. This is a research this is an interest I developed over time. So I didn't have that initially. I just wanted to see cool stuff under the microscope before. And then this is me writing the Hodgkin-Huxley equation. So this is what computational neuroscience is about. We are building models to understand how the brain works. So this was totally not lab work, but in silico in the computer. So all this stuff was very abstract, and I realized that I need to get into more translational stuff. Before getting into translational stuff, I had a stint at like almost a month we spent at Gadchiroli in Maharashtra, where I was exploring public health. And it actually shattered all my perspectives I had before. They were talking about doing research, not for the sake of just doing research, but actually solving real world problems. So this was a complete contrast to what I had in NCBS Bangalore, where it was pure blue skies research. It was totally chaste, untouched sort of pure science, and this was totally applied. So here you are doing there you're solving problems for the sake of science. Here you are solving problems for the sake of society. It was a great experience, and it changed my perspectives. Going ahead, yeah. So then I decided to do translational sort of work. So I applied for the Khurana scholarship, and I was working in the prodromal psychosis research clinic. So you might see that I was interested in neuroscience throughout, and then I started getting interested in behavior and psychiatry. So this was a natural choice. But Khurana was kind of out of reach because they said the cutoff was 80%, and then we sort of wrote to the Khurana people saying कि देखो एम्स के टॉपर्स को 75 से ज्यादा नहीं आता and 80% is sort of outlandish. Is there something you can do about it? And then the dean of our college was very supportive, and then he covered the letter with his own letter and said you should allow these guys, consider these guys application. And then to our pleasant surprise, not only did they accept two of us were applying from our college, they even reduced the cutoff from 80 to 65 just for MBBS students. So 65 is much more approachable. So yeah, so the idea being that MBBS mein there are less people who are interested. So the Khurana people genuinely did not know that 80% was an outlandish cutoff for MBBS. So if you go approach them, there's nothing you will lose, right? You're just sending in an email or a letter. But it might work out for you. And it actually worked out for every other MBBS student from the next year. And I think from this year onwards, last year there were 3 people who got through. And yeah, it's cool that people from MBBS are getting through this. So this is the Sarkari scholarship, and they give you almost 2,000 or with $2,000 to spend, and spend 3 months in the US. So the work I was doing there was with EEG and in prodromal patients. These are schizophrenia patients who still do not have florid symptoms of psychosis. They are before they get into schizophrenia. So we were exploring if some sort of hallucinatory behavior could be explained by EEG correlates. So this is a picture from the lab. We were meeting patients, we were talking to patients, and we were digging through a lot of files as well. about how such hallucinatory experiences come through, and it's pretty interesting. Like people seeing stuff, people listening to weird voices, and that got me much more interested in psychiatry than I was before. So that's it. That was my research experience. Open for questions. Before we go to questions, I'll just list a few misconceptions. It's too late to start. It's never too late to start. So these are false statements. Okay, these are not true statements. Research is only for USMLE. No one is stopping you from doing research. Otherwise, you'll have lesser incentives, and the motivation will be mostly innate. So applying for programs, that's why it helps, because you'll get deadlines and there's some sort of stick wala component to it. No good research is happening in India. False. There's good work happening. You just need to search for it. Medical college research has been going through a downhill level from the 60s, 70s, I think, and it's pretty bad. So good research happening in India is in the research institutes, pure science research institutes, or exclusively research institutes, and it would help going there, definitely. There's little research that can be done in India. No, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, especially in public health. And even in non-public health, like there are diseases which are Indian, like TB or leprosy or infectious diseases, which the West will not work for you on. And India being a big country, I think it's the responsibility of India to work for other poorer countries in this regard. So people might work on multiple sclerosis, but working on malaria is much more important, I think. Undergrad research is too much of an expectation. No one is asking you to do next gen sequencing. Do simple research, understand how research is done. There's no one around who wants to do research. This might happen when you are one or two people in a college, but then when you recognize that there's a community, then that helps a lot. I don't even have a research question in mind. What research would I do? So yeah, it's just best to jump in, dive in. You'll get questions later. Don't search for questions now. It's good if you have questions. It's good to pursue them. But if you don't have questions and you're still interested in doing research, just dive in. Don't wait for the questions to come to you. Cool. Questions. If Amulya can moderate.
Okay, so yep. So one question is, would recreating, yeah.
I'd like to
would
answer
recreating an experiment from
is asking me, how did you come up with your topic for STS? I didn't come up with my topic for STS. I heard that there's this good professor doing good work in anatomy, and it was a cool lab. So that why not go there? I did not have a research question in mind when I started STS. Yeah, Amulya, you're saying something?
But
yeah, would recreating an experiment from another paper. Okay, Varad, yes.
No, Policity is very correct. So even I did not have any question. I approached my faculty because one of my batchmates had done had done an STS under her. So yeah, usually you don't need a question. You just need
to
the
start
faculty.
a research project at an undergraduate level. You don't need to have to be at the frontier of human knowledge already. You need someone to push you there.
Yep. I met my faculty under which I was working in a lift. I was just going and we started talking, and she was like, "Okay, you are interested in it. I have a machine and it's free. I have an impulse oscillometer machine. If you want to use it for research, then you can do it." So, okay, so the question is, would recreating an experiment from another paper a good idea?
Yes, it definitely is. But the problem with there are some practical problems to science. So one thing is that has it been replicated in the Indian population? Because depends on what sort of question you're asking, there are a lot of cultural and genetic differences. So replicating it in Indian population is not a not novel question, because it's not been done in India before. People say ki, there's no novelty in doing an Indian population, they just do whatever is done in the West. But there is a lot of reasoning to why you're repeating it. But if you want to design a novel experiment, then that gives you much more of a kick than doing something that has already been done. And in science, obviously, you need to replicate findings, right? That is a part of doing science. So there's no harm in doing that. And I think it's a good project for an undergraduate because much of it has been done, if it's feasible.
Okay. Another is a controversial question. So how do you get leave from your college when you go to do research outside? So
So I'm very much thankful. I didn't add an acknowledgement slide, but I'm very much thankful to AIMS, and especially the dean also. The dean helped us a lot in Corona, and so AIMS has this AIMS Delhi, and much of the new AIMS. I think they have concept of vacations, which is not heard of in other medical colleges. So they have 1 month of vacations where you can go anywhere, and AIMS is pretty chill with attendance as well. So if your college is very naggy with attendance, then I would suggest doing something in your own college. And if you're in a big city, if you have other research institutes, then in your own city, then going there is practical without missing out too much on attendance. I know it is a big deal, but AIMS, I'm very much thankful to AIMS for giving me the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. Much of this wouldn't have been possible if I was not in college. That being said, if you are in other college where leaves are that big a problem, their formal programs help a lot because institutes tend to recognize formal programs like if there is Corona, they'll allow you, or if there's a CCMB program, they might allow you, they might give you consideration to go and attend. If that's that big a problem, doing a research project in your college will help, and going for smaller sensitization, sort of 1 week, 2 weeks, or half a week programs would be good. There are many of those kinds.
yeah. So how to learn data analysis for research?
So data analysis, I would not suggest doing a special course and then getting into research. So much of the data analysis I learned, especially I learned to code because I had to, because it was required for my experiment. I was working on zebrafish, I had to quantify it. There's no other better way to quantify it. The other way would be to sit and count. So I was doing image analysis because I had to. And when you have to, then you learn much better than. So it's like the stick and the carrot problem again, right? If you just have the carrot, you leave the carrot in a week and then you'll stop learning data analysis. But if you have the stick, you need to finish the project. Then I think you'll end up learning. So the
Yes.
learning when you're doing that sort of learning, it's more patchy, but the outcomes are better, I guess, because this is not part of curriculum. There's no stick value. Even if it's patchy, it's much more better, I think, because it has a finish point.
Right.
Was the
So,
question
so
regarding resources? I think for resources, there are a lot of free courses on Coursera, edX, YouTube. I think that's not a problem.
right. Okay. So one question is how to go around a topic you are researching on.
Use
if you
MIT
face
OpenCourseware. I'll
Yeah.
just try. MIT OpenCourseware.
Yeah, you could put that in the chat, Bharat.
I'll do that.
Yeah, Amulya?
Right. The question is how to go around the research around a topic you are researching on when or if you face a research block where you face issues such as progressing in it or you feel it is not worth the effort.
It is not
Like after
worth the effort.
when you have started researching and you face a block, you face some problem, and then you like feel that there are issues progressing on that or it might not be worth the effort even if you do it.
Oh, so basically, this is how undergraduate research is defined. You start and then you quit. So, so if you're doing a residency thesis or MD or you're a PhD
Yeah.
scholar doing a, you can't quit in between. So undergraduates are usually known for quitting projects, not an Indian thing. All throughout the world, professors are usually reluctant in taking undergraduates because they quit midway because their course load is high. They have to go to classes and then they have to come only in the evenings. They can't help much. So yeah, you have a lot of stuff going on. So having a good mentor helps. Having a good community helps. That keeps you driven to finish whatever you're doing. And the best way to finish whatever you're doing is going through a formal program, say ICMR STS, because you have to submit it at the end of the day, right?
Right.
So because interest will be fluctuating. Matlab, you might have reached the local minima. That doesn't mean that you have to quit. So if you have someone pushing you from behind, they'll keep you going forward, and maybe you'll find interest in it later. I quit a project where I was doing a clinical project, I think in GI. I was not much interested in it, and I quit midway, and I regret not informing the professor. But yeah,
Okay. Okay, so one question is, what can we include in mail to CCMB or other labs?
mailing. So a good way to mail people is to be kind, be nice, not be authoritative. Ki le lo, and it starts off. The mail usually starts off by introducing yourself, who you are, how you know this person, how did you come across this person, are you just did you watch a talk of his or her, and did you come across some paper of his or her, was this paper discussed in class or in a meeting, or were you at a conference and you said hi to them. So say you are so and so person, how do I know you, and then what you like about their lab or what you like about their work. Tell about funding. I have funding from my college, or I have I'm in the same city, so I can come over. It's not a big deal. And clearly write what you're expecting. Do you want a publication? That might not be feasible. Do you want a research experience? That might be feasible. Do you want a research project? That might not always be feasible. So if you are say in FMC Pune and the FMC is not allowing and you can go in the evenings. So you can go to ISA Pune in the evenings once a week and say that I'm just coming here to learn how to run a plot or how to run a PCR. I mean, FMC would have that stuff. Say something that's not there in FMC, and then you have to go to ISA to do that such stuff. So, like, you need to mention what you are expecting from that professor. If you are crisp in that, don't keep the mail very long. Usually, professors reply to mails if they find that it is not very, it's not a spam mail. They usually reply. So, it is sensible to put in a reminder 1 week later that, देखो, आपने reply नहीं किया, I'm interested. Reply back. So the mail should be kind. So it should be something like if someone sends something like that to you when you're busy, you should not be like, "Ay yaar, kya wapas hai, delete karo." That should not be the outlook of the email. It should be nice. So that's the problem with mails like that. They usually write big emails and professors get frustrated. There's a good link. I think I'll put it up in the chat later about how to address people while writing emails. Yeah. Anything else? I think that answers the question.
Okay, you can send that link to me. I'll forward it on the Telegram group on which we have all the students there.
Cool. So there's another question. I want to go for a PhD in theoretical neuroscience after MBBS. I'm only in my first year, so should I consider switching to a basic science program like ISCS Kolkata or ISC Bangalore? This is a very interesting question. So whosoever this is, sorry, I don't know your name. The idea is that, as I showed you, neuroscience is a very transdisciplinary field now, and we need people who can talk the language of theoretical neuroscience and bring it to the clinics. So it's not that you cannot do theoretical neuroscience as a clinician. Many people do that. And there's this new field of computational psychiatry, which I'm presently interested in, which actually needs theoretical neuroscientists for making clinically informed decisions. So that's the idea of computational psychiatry. And so whatever field, so this was a theoretical neuroscience question per se. I'm talking about psychiatry. But say you're interested in very pure biology, and you're finding MBBS to be very boring, random, too much to remember, that sort of stuff. I would say give it some time. And you could do a PhD right after MBBS as well. So there's no point quitting. You could do PhD right after MBBS. And because MBBS has good scope, you'll have good bachelor's knowledge in that way. So MBBS is an entry point for PhD in Indian institutes and even in America. So that shouldn't be a problem. But what I would suggest is being a clinician and being the bridge between clinics and the pure science people when you talk both languages is a very plus point, and that will add value to who you are. So whoever this person is from YouTube, I would suggest you to give more time to MBBS. You might start looking at patients and you might start liking it, which is not a bad thing. And your interests will change. Mine did too, so it just takes time. Anyone else?
So I think
How can coding help me become a better doctor? Coding will not help you become a better doctor. Coding is a necessity to answer some research questions because you have to analyze that data. So it is not about being a doctor. Being a researcher, you might have to know how to code because you might have to know how to analyze your data. So there's no relationship between clinical practice and knowing how to code. What are some smaller programs like 1 week or so? CCMB has a winter program which is for 2 weeks. It's an observation program. And there is DIPS, Developing Indian Physician Scientists, which happens in Delhi or Hyderabad CCMB, conducted by IGIB director and JIPMER director. And those are smaller programs. And if there are more, I think we should put in a PDF or something like that. I'll just put it in.
all right. And we'll compile it and send it to the group, right?
Yeah, we could compile it. Yeah, if there's community already, like we have that Telegram group already.
Yeah. We have that community. We have that subscribers. Yeah.
That's cool. Then we can put in list of programs, whatever you know, and people can contribute to that list. It can be an open list and people can keep adding stuff. Is mediocrity, lack of holistic approach, the reason for dearth or scarcity of research among undergraduate students? No, it's not mediocrity, lack of holistic approach. It is just that there is no incentive. So if you make the PG exam or PG entrance like the USMLE entrance where research becomes a component, you will start finding that MBBS, everyone is doing research. That does not ensure quality, and it is not going to happen that PG exam will change. But that's what I'm saying. So that the problem is a lack of incentive. It is not mediocrity. I hope that answers. Anyone else? I think this QA is going fine. We can stop whenever you want to, but I'm enjoying this. If there are more questions, we can continue.
I think we are done with majority of questions. One or two maybe because of repetition, because we have already discussed it. I think we are done with the question. We can stop today's session.
Cool. So, I didn't put my contact details, but you can feel free to reach out to me. I think I'll ask Amulya to add me onto that Telegram group as well. Cool.
Okay, sure.
Bye bye. Good luck.
Thank you everybody for joining the session. The next session will start tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp. We have session with Lavdeep, Dr. Lavdeep Singh, and that will deal with how to approach your first research project, how to get a first research your first project and how to approach it. And then I think we can at 7 we have a session with Dr. Varun Pantavekar in which we'll deconstruct a research paper. Like we'll see what are the parts of a research paper and how like how can we analyze it, right? So okay, I'm ending the meeting. Thank you everybody.